go. There you go.
Oh, was that all it took?
Yeah, you probably just added the camera
with it.
Well, great. I'm so glad we got that together. That was a lot easier than the other day. So we're just excited about it. Well, I guess we can kind of wait and let a little bit more people get on here. And, a few more seconds and then get on into it. And so, yeah, how was your day today? I know
my hair for you.
Hmm?
I brushed my hair for you.
It looks great. You look great.
Thank you. No, I've literally come out of several sessions today. And
wow.
I purposely didn't. I don't like actually sometimes preparing for things. I'm really big on being authentic.
Uh-huh.
So I don't quite know what's going to show up today, but this is going to go well. I have to say, I love being in your presence. You're so cheerful.
Oh, thank you.
This just feels like being at home a little bit.
Yeah, it's just two girlfriends chatting.
Oh, it is.
Live. For sure. I know it seemed like it was a little bit busy earlier today. I seen a lot of people on live. And so what I want us to do is probably just go ahead and get on into it, and the people just trickle on in. And we'll have this recorded back so people can check it out a little bit later as well. So let's make sure here we have that together. All right. Well, thank you. And so hello, everyone, and good evening. Welcome to Virtual First Dates and Raw Conversations or Raw Talks with V. Bailey and our special guest, Meira Greenfeld. And so I wanted to make sure I didn't mess that up. I'm like, am I saying it right?
We just accept this and then we move on. Letters.
Yes, right. You're so true. Well, thank you for coming on. And so with Virtual First Dates, you have the opportunity to participate in live dates and learn from the daters or participants' live dating experience. And so not only that, but we also like to have special guests and therapists come on the live and discuss the different areas that affect us in our dating life and overall relationships. And so that's why we wanted to bring on our special therapist, Dr. Well, I can call it Doctor. Or just not doctor, but therapist.
I think I'll just yeah.
We'll add on some certificates and degrees. But therapist Meira Greenfeld. And so Meira Greenfeld is a licensed psychotherapist with several years of experience working with individuals, couples, and families experiencing acute stress disorders, trauma, anxiety, identity cohesion, racial trauma, and substance abuse. So that's a lot. And there was so much more. I definitely posted that in our flyer for the show. There's so many things and so much experience that you have. And so I had to have you on. I was very impressed with your page. And there was just so much for me to learn from. And I believe that our viewers and followers, members of the Virtual First Dates community can learn so much from the information that you have all those jewels up top. And so this evening we're going to talk about dating during a pandemic. So let's go ahead and get into it. The first things first, dating during COVID. Want to go ahead and discuss that and hear your thoughts and advice on dating during COVID.
So because we sort of talked about this and what comments, things that we were going to highlight, and my initial reaction was that doesn't sound like a really good idea. I would generally suggest for people, especially when I'm talking about my population, my clients, and I deal with a lot of trauma, a lot of racial, a lot of heavy stuff. But
right.
I don't encourage people to sort of make major changes when they're going through trauma. You kind of want to, as a basic premise, you want to kind of sort of settle yourself, get an idea of like where you're at, who you are, before you sort of bring someone else into the equation.
Right.
it's really hard to have to make a deep connection if you don't know where you're at, for want of a better way of expressing that. Okay?
Sure.
That's usually like my go-to. Of course, I don't tell people to sort of bust up with someone. Sometimes couples come to you. I would suggest put that on hold. It's sort of like basically show up where you're at. Sort of try to put things on pause. Don't make major changes. If you're already in a relationship, just get sort of tread lightly for a bit while you sort yourself out. And that's just be a fair thing. It's very hard to date someone who's going through a lot of awakenings, developing new insight. I mean, it's just thing you'd have to shift with them. So I say that, but then let's be clear. We're in a time of COVID, and I think we're still trying to figure out what the heck is that. And we got sideswiped. Look, I don't think it came out of the blue. And something you and I didn't talk about was that I actually have been seeing a current with the sort of racial things, because I also focus on racial trauma. And I got together with a colleague and thought, let's make a video where we can sort of reach out to people and discuss things. And then the George Floyd thing happened, and it was too late for that video. And so a lot of people are going through that. They're going through COVID. We're going through a lot of stuff, and it's still happening.
Right. Correct.
So my thoughts were, well, how long are we waiting? How long are we going through this? I mean, is everybody going to put their life on hold? So I'm thinking, I sort of generally think that, no, don't put your life on hold. I wouldn't make major decisions, but, they're going to meet. Some people had just met people. Really?
Right.
Yeah, when they get
exactly.
See you later, And so...
They're in the height of their dating career. Okay? What do you mean? COVID's not going to stop this.
Exactly.
Like, I have plans. I don't know what y'all got going on, but I have plans, okay? So
I'm not even sure if 2020 is going to be cancelled. I was just thinking that. I was thinking, what happened? I had a birthday and I didn't even think, like, what is even the point? You feel cheated.
Oh.
I think that life is happening now. And my preference is that, we're always caught up in the middle of things.
Always.
So I like sort of to start with the basic thing of sort of know yourself, go tread warily and assuredly and intentionally in this world that we're in. And I don't know if I put dating on the top of my list of things to do, but if you're going through a life, you meet someone, quite ghastly about just putting that on hold.
Well, but would you say that it's just as important to do all of those things that we discussed outside of a pandemic? Just knowing who you are, tapping in, being more self-aware so that you open yourself up to the right type of people and, go into a relationship confident so that you're not going into this relationship or meeting someone new, having these requests, but you don't even know yourself, and then, so you're having unrealistic expectations. And so wouldn't you think that all those things they're important outside of COVID, right?
Yes, absolutely. So I think you just have one framework, and you have it whether you have COVID or not, and that is that you get some stability in your life and you know where you're at. Do you wait around? No, we're all evolving and we learn new things. You just want to be sufficiently stable that you can make a connection with someone, because I think that fundamentally is what we're talking about. I mean,
yes.
I'm sure your show isn't about hookups. I'm talking about
definitely not. It's about something real to learn, to learn and apply, right?
Absolutely.
For sure.
It's important more than ever now.
Right.
I think having a good connection with someone is a part of how you're going to get through it, So I just don't like the message in general about, saying no to establishing connections with someone. I don't know if it's going to lead to marriage.
Right. Well, we need it as people. We were created to love. So, there's a process. You don't just wake up and do it, so you have to be able to interact and just hearing the different stories of people when this first happened, and then a month, 2 months in, just with all this uncertainty of when is it going to end, when you're going to get back out and do the things that you used to do. It's been driving a lot of people crazy, especially if you're single. And when I say single, meaning no ring on your finger, you're not, married. An older lady at our church used to say, you're single till you're married. So I get it. But in this time, being single, or, maybe you're in the beginning stages of dating or meeting someone, you still want to be able to connect, have those experiences, watch a movie with someone, eat dinner next to them, have a drink. And so now things are kind of moving towards the direction where we're able to get out a little bit more. They're, social distancing at these restaurants. Out here in Texas, it almost seems normal, besides it being packed to capacity. It seems almost normal. And, and I just didn't believe that we could stay, in that state for too long, because we need to interact, as people. We're social creatures. So definitely. Okay, so let's see. We wanted to talk about also the pros and cons about starting a relationship or continuing one. Because another thing that I've noticed is people who are in relationships or living with someone, even married, this stay-at-home order has may have traumatized them, because they're, used to having that time apart, even away from their children. It's just like, well, and as far as a relationship goes, do I really like this person? Like, I enjoy this person and like this person a lot more when I only seen them 3 times a week. Or, if you live together, you have your whole day where you get to go to work. They get to go to work, and if your schedules are a little bit, off, you may have just that special time where you all are able to be together for a few hours and just enjoy each other versus all day. So let's tap into that.
Yeah, that's quite a few challenges, because a lot of us, as you know, I do a lot of work with identity, and our work and our routine that ends up sort of shaping and giving a form to our identity. And so a lot of that kind of got thrown out the window.
That's good.
And there's a lot of, who am I? What am I doing? And so if you have 2 people doing that, under a slow and under very stringent confines, that
right,
can be dramatic. But I am going to highlight and say one of the things that I sort of focused on is that there was also a narrative out there about how in this time of COVID, it forced a lot of people to keep real. A lot of people are automatic, just doing these routines and doing this and that and the other and making their dollar.
Right.
They suddenly had to, be with people and sort of see what their lives were like, what they had and what they didn't have, and what was there for them. And so I think it's very magical and special about this time, and actually, I was going to say fertilizing a relationship, but maybe that just sounds odd. But no, I know. Nurturing a relationship during this time, because it got real.
Very much so. It was just like, hey, I'm introducing you to my real self now. We're first meeting each other during this time, because it does get real. Things slow down, and it's just like, okay, this is who we really are. Yeah, right. So
who am I without my job?
Right.
Who am I without all my interests and where I go and the cover? Sometimes we don't have the cover anymore, and it's a more thing. And to be honest, this is something that people fight for, or maybe they don't want what they want, but we really do want. What is a relationship about? We really want to find a space where we're safe, where we can be ourselves, where we can be valued and be seen and heard by somebody else, and build that kind of connection.
Right.
Circumstances may very well have pushed people along much further than they wanted to be, where they have to be real.
Right.
Also dealing with death here. So, I can't think of anything more traumatic than that.
Right.
Here and then they're suddenly gone. I think that plays into things being real.
Right.
Also, if we had skills, now's the time when people are using them. You may
Right.
have people now at their more authentic selves. I know this sounds like a bit of an odd juncture to then sort of talk about in the future, but it's not uncommon that a lot of people felt closest with others when they were going through something. It can be a
trauma bonding.
Nobody looks for this.
Right.
But there's something about sharing a space like this with somebody else and working through it. What else can you not handle?
Right. No, I totally agree with that. It makes me, just over the time I've been analyzing it and just, tapping in, spending time with myself, being, becoming more self-aware, because in the beginning I was kind of confused of what was going on and, how things were going to go. Besides the negative pieces of death and losing people, I do think that there is a little bit of silver lining as far as this experience, because it's forced us to take a look at our lives and identify the holes and the cracks, in our relationships and with each other, in our relationships with ourselves, in our relationships with God or whomever it is that you may, believe in. And so it makes you take a closer look and say, okay, my relationship is a little shaky, or these areas I need to improve. And it also makes you think of what's really important. And for me, it was, I realized, I said, nothing's important. I mean, you can have as many degrees, you could, make all these different accomplishments, but if you're not living your life in your purpose and making an impact, then you're not really, you're not living. And, obviously we are seeing every day through everything that's been going on the several months, that tomorrow is not promised. It doesn't matter what age you are, death doesn't discriminate, and so to me, it's just woken me up in a way that's just so powerful, because it's like, focus on, your purpose, do the work, love on, your family and your friends, all of your loved ones. Make sure that they know that you love them, and build those experiences with them, and and just live life that way to the fullest, whatever that means for you. And also, as it pertains to dating, is for me, is finding a partner or dating someone who is aligned with those same values. And so that's what I've got, I got from it, and a lot of different friends, family members, associates have shared their experiences with me too. And you can see that, as you said, they're becoming more real, being more of their selves, because you don't have time to be anyone else right now, So
I do think two areas to maybe sort of contemplate that I sort of had in my mind. I don't know how much time we've got for different points. I think we answer people's questions, but
right.
So if we're going to go through this, and then when it's suddenly, I don't know if it's going to suddenly end. Is it going to phase into something else? I think the consensus is that life is not probably going to be the same way it was when we started.
Right.
I'm going to be holding out on that as they're not going with the majority, because first of all, even just in terms of how things are set up, a lot more people are working from home now. Things are not possible. I think corporations are now sort of understanding that, well, you know what, maybe mothers can work from home now, or fathers.
Right.
Maybe, I don't know what values are going into change. When you have major events such as this one, it really does do something to the collective psyche. And I think it's still too soon to see how COVID is really going to change us. So one of the things to think about is that, yes, people bond in times of stress. And that could sort of sometimes accelerate things. And then what is the normal that's after that then? Because, you bond over stress. And then when it gets back down to like maybe going to the office or whatever, and that's assuming that it's that kind of life again.
Right.
But this is so intense right now. It's death, and anything could happen.
Right.
sort of, did you get cheese? Do we have milk? Do you know what I'm saying? When it gets back to that. If it gets
Right. That's so interesting.
How do you guys jive? You know, I mean, one of the things that we look at, like in relationships, that some people really do thrive.
Mm-hmm.
Adrenaline rush. So you think you know each other, but maybe let's know each other here. What things kind of get like here.
Right. It's like, you know, an area, you know, of them. And I think that's another problem, you know, sometimes in relationships, because people, you know, feel like, okay, I love this person, but they haven't even began to know, you know, them and know these other areas, you know, of that person. And so once they start getting introduced to that other area, or those other traits about that person, they're like, I don't know if I like this. Like, what happened? I thought you loved me, you know? And it's just a process, you know, it's can you know, love me, deal with me in all of me. Can you deal with all of me? So, yeah, let me see what some of these comments say. Oh, okay. So AD White says, what is hell that's coming? Stay up for a second here. Okay. So, he says, a few years ago, I got snowed in with someone I was dating. After 24 hours, I walked home. That's what I'm saying, you know. That is what I'm saying is it's hard, you know, especially when you're not used to it. I had a similar experience where I was talking to a guy and we were kind of crazy about each other, and then a hurricane happened. And so I'm thinking, well, no worries, you know, like you can come and stay with me. I'm not thinking about how long this is going to be, how long this natural disaster is going to affect him. I just knew he could work from home, you know, at this time. And they were flooded, you know, in certain areas. And so I'm just like, you can just come stay with me. We can spend all this time together. So he stayed for 10 days and yeah, it broke us. it broke us. And any of my friends, you know, before at this time, way back when, would say I was crazy to do in the first place, because typically, you know, spending that much time when you're not used to it takes, you know, a little bit of getting used to when you enjoy your space and your, you know, your private time. You have to get reacclimated with someone in your space, moving your stuff, and you know, their opinion about what you're watching, you know, or they're taking over the TV, whatever. And yeah, it drove me nuts, completely bonkers. And I was just like, he has to go.
About how many days in?
10. Oh, okay. So he was with me for 10 days.
No, but how many days in were you starting to go bonkers?
I did really good, about 5.
Halfway point.
Yeah. And I, at that point, I couldn't take it. And then, you know, he would snore, you know, and so he was getting the best sleep of his life, and I wasn't getting any sleep. And then I wake up in the morning, I would actually have to go to work, and he could sleep in a little longer because he got to work from home. And so I'm just looking at him like, I just can't. I hope that water clears up. I hope, you know, everything gets better so you can go home. Like, I need a break from you. And yeah, so it broke us, but it taught me a lot about myself, and a lot about him. And yeah, when you care about someone, you do figure out a way to kind of work through those things. But, you know, if you've never had that experience, you know, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle.
It underscores the importance of seeing someone in a number of different dimensions. And one of the dimensions that a lot of people are lacking right now is, how is that person in the context of other relationships, right? Mm-hmm. Because you really want to see, you know, if it's the two of you cooped up in a house and social distancing, what does the relationship look like? I mean, you're not really getting information on how they interact with other people.
Very important.
Family members. And, you know, one of the things that, now, of course, I'm not always seeing relationships at their best if I'm a trauma therapist, right?
Right.
Well, but there's a lot of...
There may be moments.
Yeah. But sometimes, you know, you can be with somebody who's very controlling. And that's actually one of the red flags that I suggest people look out for, is because people can be fine like together, but they can be very controlling, and sometimes the control manifests itself when people are interacting with other people. You know, you to be with your friends, and if you're not going to be able to see any of that. Everybody has this other cover where we're not actually, we're not actually going out and actually meeting with anybody, right?
Right.
You're going to be missing some cues.
Right, that are critical.
Right, you want to see people in a number of different experiences and situations with different people. That's the real, why? Because people that are very good at covering up their, at some point they crack. Right?
That's very true. That's true. You can only fake it for so long. I guess that's why they have your probation period.
Yeah. But if you want in a unidimensional kind of setting, just this one kind of situation,
right?
You're not seeing everything, right?
That's true.
You're going to live in that bubble for that long, right? At some point, are we going out? Are we having friends? Are we socializing? Are we meeting family members? Right? I don't think this is anything that was necessarily found in therapist manuals. A lot of wisdom comes from the mothers, grandmothers, they know. There's a reason why family wants to see who you're dating, right?
Right.
How are they dating? They got table manners?
Right.
How are they? You're going to be missing, sometimes you're missing a lot of information, that's very So that's one of the...
Having community, right?
Yeah, but how are you both in community?
And also to...
Under that pressure.
Right. And to add to what you were saying, it's also important for them to see you and your element, because if you're like, I'm a very, I'm social, I interact with people, like, you were stating before, like, my spirit and stuff. Some people, I've met some people in my past that were intimidated and a little jealous, of that. Thought I was flirting. I'm like, well, my personality is a lot like my mother's. We're kind of like presenters, and we socialize. We love people and love just, having a good time and interacting. And you can't be that way and then be, to yourself. And the person that's with you, they have to understand that. So yeah, if your relationship is one dimensional and you're just in closed off and at home all the time, you don't get to see those other sides. Does this person really accept you for who you are? Because when you're at home, even, as a person, a couple, if you're living together, you may be one way at home, as a woman or the man. The man, he may just be around fixing everything, doing these different things, or whatever it may be. The wife or girlfriend may be just catering. But then when they get away, get around their friends, out in public, they're not doing that as much. And that may raise a few issues.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting, but I do want to go back to with dating during COVID. Do you feel, because in the beginning, I was thinking, do you feel that the meetings and the interactions are authentic? Because I feel like a month in, people were coming out of the woodwork from your past and calling you, hey, how are you doing? What's been going on with you? It's just like, do you think I live under a rock? Like, I know what's going on. You haven't called me in 6 months. We don't talk. Like, what? Oh, so you're just checking on me, but I'm curious, to know from your perspective, do you believe that they're authentic interactions or reconnecting, with people from your past, that it's authentic, or even new meetings, because I know we spoke about people being more of their real selves, but I feel like we didn't start really tapping into that until several months in to it, because it is like, okay, this is really real. We've been going through it. Like now, enough with all the memes. I'm really looking at my life and myself and, becoming more me, or allowing myself to be more transparent and vulnerable. So what do you think about that? Do you believe that these this reconnection, these reuniting is real and authentic?
Well, I would say, well, I have a number of things sort of ran through my head. One thing is that I have a bit of an outsider perspective because I'm not from here. And also, I think my experience going through September 11th really sort of, I feel like I've seen this mass sort of response to like a collective kind of, tragedy sort of unfold before. And one of the things I noticed is that the really heavy denial, right? My impression is that, yes, a lot of bad things happen, like like there was Hurricane Katrina. I mean, things happen here in the States, but they seem to have, I think, gone a long stretch where we didn't have like a big something where everybody was going through it.
Right.
Look, I've got my hands over my face.
No problem.
I think that there was a sort of massive denial initially, so people were in shock.
Right.
It's not being trauma; they were undergo shock. I'm going to get some water.
Okay, of course. Yes, please don't choke on it.
I know, don't die on life, right?
Right.
That would be terrible.
Definitely. I would be traumatized. Like, oh my God.
I know. You could just see what the trauma stages are.
Right. Exactly.
So I think that, denial and shock is something that happens initially. And I think people they just needed time to process what was going on. And why I mentioned that sort of other thing is that I had a lot of family members from Europe that were communicating with me, and they were already, hunkered down. And so it wasn't. I personally felt like I had a sort of split sort of reality where, everybody over there is socially distancing already, and here they don't know what it means yet. It just seemed to take a while to kick in here.
Yeah. And it's crazy.
I think that accounts for that. There was a period of time where we may not have seen what people were doing. I think a lot of people were in shock.
Right. For sure.
I think a lot of people also just came acclimated to what was happening. I must remember, I think, in fairness, some people just had time on their hands. So, and people always, I think, also yearned for connection.
Right.
A human response to want to connect, especially when people were, I think it was kind of horrific for a lot of people. They really, my impression was that, I'll be honest, I told my husband, this is not going to be for a couple of weeks. People are going to be holed up for a really long period of time. I just thought that's just what I felt.
You just felt it, yeah.
But the thing was that I felt that if you're like in a leadership position, you can't really just tell people that. They can't go from like, hey, to you're going to have to go to your house and stay there for months. They wouldn't have been able to process that.
Right. Well, we just maybe should have, taken a page out of, other countries and what they did, because it seems like they were able to kind of get everything under wraps fairly quickly, or quicker than us. And so just had to be, there had to be some sense of urgency and not, just dilly-dallying around like, well, they didn't order us to stay home here,
America is a different country, though.
That's true.
Country. So I've long since, I don't really get into that. Look, they do that here. How come you don't here? You're different. You can always look and learn and sort of explore it.
Yeah, see what works.
But it's more that I think the psyche's different. It wasn't at first. It didn't. Americans are, even among, there's a tendency to think that because there are different people in English-speaking countries, they all think, no, the American psyche is very unique. Right?
Very true.
It's the history, the events and everything. The only thing I can say which would be a fair reference point is maybe to compare it to the response after September 11th, because September 11th was also something that seemed to affect everybody. Even
Right.
in New York, it was this collective thing that sort of hit everybody in America.
Right.
And people looked at that as, look, it's that thing that just happens into New York, and let's sort of keep going. It happened to America.
Right.
So if you see that, and I was there, and I was in Manhattan when the first plane struck, and I thought, how could I be around shopping and everything, you know? And then I was sort of hightailed it out of there, but it was just really interesting to see the response then. So that's why I say that there's a sort of, is it happening? Is it not? Let's keep doing what we were doing, but keeping one eye there. It was very sort of unusual to me.
That makes me think about culture, like how you're saying, America's such a different, type of country. Culturally, I wonder how that affects us, in dating, in our dating. Because I do feel like there's a level of being desensitized, here, and so I'm wondering how much of that is affecting our relationships and dating, because we talk about the trauma and there's so many different levels to it. And we're still at a place where a lot of people don't accept it. They're like, I don't have any trauma. It's like, well, if you're living and breathing past 5, you have trauma. You just are not accepting it yet. Probably earlier than that,
Well, one of the things that I'd be remiss if we did this and I didn't mention it is that, if someone does have trauma, there's different types. There's sort of trauma you think of in terms of like an event, and then there's like developmental trauma. Trauma is really a reaction in the body and not being able to sort of fully be in the present because we're triggered by something happened in the past. So it's a switch, when we're reliving something in the past, feeling it's happening now, but it's really not. That's really what basically I would say that trauma is. I would say pretty much if people are going through COVID and then a lot of people through the racial conflict afterwards.
Yes.
Surgeons, and I'm not even sure what words to use to define it. You're going to get, if you have any kind of trauma, you're going to get triggered by the COVID thing and everything. You're going to get one of the things you look for when people have trauma is getting triggered because something is big and is heavy. That COVID is visible. We can't see it. It's a natural instinctive thing to do to want to be able to protect yourself against a threat.
Right, invisible trauma.
COVID. We can't see a virus.
Right.
So people, if you did have trauma before, it's quite normal that you could have a trauma reaction just with that, and that's your first big experience of trauma then. And because of the body being in a state of helplessness and not being able to sort of, you can't really sort of access the functions of the executive function, the prefrontal lobe.
For sure, yeah.
Beings do best to gain perspective, to problem solve, to regulate yourself. And what I'm saying is that one of the things that you and I talked about before is recognizing how trauma is going to show up. See, this is the tricky thing about treating it, is that trauma doesn't show up the same way for everyone. When people think of trauma, then they think PTSD, they think of Vietnam War movies, or, movies, and they think, the regular ones, flashbacks and some of them, Scream or something. Trauma doesn't always look like that. First of all, it's very different in children. And also people react, there's a range of responses. People can adapt sort of like a fight or flight stance.
Right.
But fawn is also another response where people sort of are helpless. And they
what was that one?
Fawn. Fight, flight, fawn, faint, and freeze. If I'm reading all of them. So behaviors that are sort of, like for example, being irritable and angry might not look like fight, but that would be a manifestation in behavior of what fight symptomatic response would be. So we have a lot of behavioral adaptations of these basic survival responses. I find fawn very interesting because it's an easy one to not recognize that someone's going through that. Fawn is something, if you're thinking about in the wild, let's say like a gazelle about to be eaten by a lion or close to it, yeah, I was BBC. Violent. I should have announced a trigger warning right there. But sort of, playing dead or just sort of being small is a survival mechanism. It's sort of, if you can't run and if you can't fight, your body's going to go through a number of different sort of responses to calculate what's the best way for you to get out of the situation. So sometimes being small, playing possum, literally, being still, it can give you a window of time, right? Because then the predator stops going on, and in a bit of time you might be able to get away, or whatever. So that can show up with humans in different ways. I mean, sometimes people wonder. So for human beings, it can show up as appeasement. Some people don't like confrontation, and they just quiet that person down.
Right. That's kind of hard, dealing with those type of people sometimes. For me, especially when I'm a fixer, so I'm always trying to fix it. No, we're gonna get this resolved. We'll take care of it. Let's fix it so we don't have to go to sleep, with this on our minds. And then, if you're dealing with someone who is doesn't like, conflict or doesn't like to deal with things straight on, it becomes very difficult to have relationships, because you're constantly, that's a big area to disagree, you have to figure out a way
there, because that's a great way of so this is my philosophy, that you can be different. It doesn't have to be a deal breaker.
Right.
Most of it's understanding those responses and sort of recognizing them. What you just described there can be just two different ways of responding to stress, right?
What is, yeah.
But stress activates your survival sort of response, okay? So some people want to fix their doers. You're action-oriented, right? So you've got that energy. Yes. Right. Somebody responding. Yes, it's important to know how your partner handles conflict. Absolutely.
Critical.
I am mad white.
Yeah, I am AD white. Yeah.
Is that what it is? Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Acknowledge that. Oh, I am
AD white. Yeah. It's okay. It's hard with this Instagram, the handles. They come through so quickly.
Yes, absolutely. It's important to know how your partner handles conflict. I find that understanding is so key. Certain core things I really wanted to sort of highlight. There are certain core things. If you realise relationships are about connection and understanding, and sometimes recognising what I'm doing, and that's my survival response. And then it's getting into that sort of judgy thing. This is theirs. So what's the key thing here? The key thing, as I just said, is two people dealing with getting into their survival mechanisms, how they normally handle stress.
Right.
The key thing is to realise that's what we're doing here right now. It's not personal. We're handling stress. Down is a perfectly reasonable and rational response. Actually, it's not so much rational, because it's what your body's doing. It's a natural response to overwhelm. You're conserving energy, right?
Okay.
Just backing off. So when we sometimes understand, it can allow for a lot more compassion, right?
Right.
It allows somebody their space, right?
Right.
You're doing, you're just doing it differently.
Right. That's true. I like that. Probably could conserve some energy. What is it? Okay, so AD says, do you feel like we as society have romanticized love too much? Our ideals our ideals of love unrealistic? It's a good question. It's perfect time for questions.
They're just going to come out and ask those hard-hitting questions, right? They do love it. I like to not be prepared, because really, so I really like sort of being, how do you answer that?
Yeah, give that authentic answer.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that I just sort of try to stay away from sort of the judgy thing. I think part of that professional part of me, where my mind goes is, let me try and understand, what is it that person's doing? What are we doing when we do that? So if we're talking about romanticized love as in coming from the media, Music's about selling movies, it's about playing on emotions,
sex sales, all that. Yeah.
I don't know if that's the place to get your tips. I have tips on how to approach love from real life people. Look to see, tap into your energy, feel the energy of other people. I think if we're really listening to our bodies, we'll be able to resonate if people are really happy, if they're not. Right?
I love that.
Happy. If you feel that and you feel that's happy, that's a great place to learn.
Right.
Being there with that connection, right? So that's right. I think there's nothing wrong. I think there's nothing wrong with, like, as a general thing, being idealistic. I'm idealistic. I have hopes and dreams, but I do discourage just having fantasies. I think have hope, but based on some planning, right?
I like that. I'm a planner.
And then you're just fantasizing. And all about living, not just be fantasizing, but you can have some rough ideals. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do think life is for living and being in the now, right?
Right. A little blend of it all.
Distinguishing between what's working, what's not. I always come back down to being authentic. What you need to know yourself. What really resonates with you? Are you someone who's leaning here, or do you lean there? Know yourself. If you find yourself just sort of faking it, you need to figure out where that's coming from. Are you faking for the person? Are you faking because of you? It's the fakey that's going to be the killer in the relationship. So if you're doing some sort of romanticized, I don't really know what people mean when they say that. If you're talking about being romantic and you're thinking about what I think is beautiful when I'm thinking of romantic is that it's just a nice way of saying I feel I'm paying attention to you, and sometimes I'm going to step outside my comfort level, and I'm not going to make it about me. I'm going to notice you. Actually, I think that's more like that. I'm going to notice you, and I'm going to validate you. And there's something nice about validating someone when they don't even see it coming. You didn't ask for it. You didn't know. I see you. And I think that has the makings of a relationship. And that can be very romantic. Taking time. I do think it's a shame, and I guess maybe I'm going to be a bit controversial now, but that's how I roll. It's a shame in our wanting to stand up for our rights that we throw out the window these things that we have that have become somewhat ritualized. They don't have to be all about gender. I personally don't feel that you think I'm helpless when you open the car door, but I recognize it's a ritual that we attach meaning to. That means that, you know what? That's sometimes somebody's way of saying, I noticed you. You know what?
Right.
You. I think
Let me help you really quick. Just doing some small thing that made your day easier. You know,
rituals all the time, and they're just ways of saying, look, I'm going to just stop, and I'm going to use this thing to show that. I'm just thinking, if you're doing that and you're being authentic, the key is that if you're doing authentic and that's how you're expressing it, then it works. I think there's a lot of room for what two people do.
Right.
That's if you're coming from that space and you're seeing each other. There's certain things that don't change from couple to couple.
Right.
If you're a human being, you're wired in a certain way. Human beings are wired to connect. It does something for us. It helps us grow. It's healthy. Some people say, well, I don't need anyone. And then my response to that is that you can override anything.
Right.
Otherwise, we go to war. We override our instinct to survive. So just because you override doesn't mean that was natural. But I think there's something very natural. It's how we're designed. Otherwise, we wouldn't have mirror neurons. I'm looking at biology. We come with things that suggest a certain function. We're wired to connect. And it feels good. I also say, why would you have oxytocin? I love oxytocin. I know.
People are going to be like, what does that mean? Please post that under the video. What is that?
It is, we release oxytocin at certain key times. I'm going to talk about when we have sex.
Okay.
When we're taking care of babies.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. When we're cleaning.
No.
Do you ever feel really stressed? Then you go just tidy up your whole kitchen and you feel better?
Yeah, it's so weird. I don't know where that. I'm trying to figure out how that all comes together. I guess maybe because it's kind of, I guess in your subconscious mind, you're thinking like, I'm helping, I'm taking care of someone.
Okay. I wish I always had comments like this.
Yes, that is.
I'm feeling it right now. Just from,
yes, as Dr. Chappelle, she's actually a brain doctor, Miss Fahati. So yes, welcome.
Yeah, and so that's my thing. I'm like, why would you think we're made with that if we're not having connections? Part of what we're supposed to do. I think there's some evolutionary reasons for it. I bring up evolutionary reasons, and I sort of get into boring and talk about being like not being romantic anymore. But people need to have this scientific justification.
Right.
The numbers. We're by no means the strongest mammal on the planet, but we pretty much dominate. You know what? Because we know how to bond with each other. And it's our numbers. And our bonding enables us to feel safe. And we can feel safe in the presence of danger. I mean, you can feel safe in the presence of danger. You can go out and you can create. You can go out and you can conquer. So it all works with how we are as human beings.
That's important. That's so important that we still get to do that and connect, like what you said. That's powerful. So we can't lose that, ability to connect, because that's gonna we won't be dominating anymore if that's taken away from us.
Yeah, but you're doing what we're wired to do, and when people do I'm not suggesting that everybody has to be with somebody and have babies and all the rest of it. I do sort of stop people with, like, what is authentic for you, and keeping in touch with yourself, and that's a good place to start with, just like the general design, then, if you will.
Right.
And then, because why reinvent the wheel? You come being able to resonate and figure out if something fits in with that or it doesn't, and you can use that. You can use that in your dating, and I think you can use that even in our COVID environment.
Right.
If we're safe and to listen to,
that's good.
That's what we need in relationships. When you fight that, part of the thing is to pause and to figure out why are you fighting that? Why are you not paying attention to those red flags? Have you ever broken up with someone and then reflected back on your relationship and realized that you maybe should have been as surprised as you were about the things that went south, because the little seeds were there right from the beginning, may well have been there on the first date.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm a little bit more, I think, intense, and intentional when I'm dating. But yes, I've experienced that before as well, with friendships. When you see them fall apart and you're like, oh, okay, well, there were some signs. And I definitely believe that, as far as any relationship, romantic relationships, there are signs. You just have to take the blinders off. A lot of times we put those blinders on because we want, that connection. We want, to have those relationships. And a lot of times we're influenced by our community around us, friends, family, social media. So yeah, you have to kind of take ownership and be the captain of your own ship, and not let all those things influence you, because otherwise you'll miss the signs. So yeah, I know. Yeah. Oh, cool. No, I was just going to say we have about 2 minutes, I think. Okay. I know. What is it? Hindsight, it's always 20/20 for sure. So I didn't know if you wanted to give some areas of responsibility really quick, or some last thoughts to leave our audience with before we go ahead and close.
About what in particular?
Just any of the things that we've covered. Probably just, I would say, our areas of responsibility as it pertains to dating during this time.
I would, as a general thing, I think sort of being aware that we're in a time that can be very triggering. It can be very stressful. You don't have to fake it that, she asked a big question. You don't have to fake it that you're doing okay. You're probably not. And that's okay that you're not doing okay, you know? And pacing yourself. You know, in terms of being with someone else, I think one of the best things that you can do, especially at this time, is listen to yourself. Go easy, you know? If you're doing that and there's a connection that's made itself available to you, I can't really honestly say that it's the wrong thing to not pursue that. I would just say, though, go forward intentionally, pay attention to where you're at, in a sort of deliberate thing, knowing that, look, a lot of things are going to change. So maybe be a bit wary about making some long-term commitments about in a world where events are changing quite suddenly. You know, we also have, not getting political, but there's an election year coming up. I mean, this is election year. We're in the election year. There's an election coming up. Who even knows what that's going to do?
Right. Very true.
It's when you're in an environment or situation where there's a lot of change, just, you know, breathe, slow down. One foot in front of the other. Check yourself. Take the next step. I don't see any reason to rush.
Okay. Well, I don't know. We're going to go ahead and try and answer this question for AD. One last question. Do you believe in love languages? And if, I've seen people talk about them often. Yeah, that is a discussion. I guess let's try and sum that up in about 30 seconds. Yes, so we don't get cut off.
Seconds? Do I believe? Look, I'm a big. If something is working for someone, I might look. If someone, people find things work for them. You know, I don't try to impress upon people what works for me. You know, people are different. I really do respect their difference and their uniqueness. I'm saying if you explore an area like love languages and you find that resonates with you and it makes you more your authentic self, I say, right?
Okay. Right. No, I agree. I totally agree. Well, I want to thank you so much again for coming on and speaking to our audience. It was so insightful. And all of you, you know, I love my virtual first dates community, and we'll have to have you on again, doctor. I want to keep calling you doctor. I'm manifesting that.
I didn't expect to deserve it.
Right. Well, I appreciate it.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. For all of you who tuned into the show, I just wanted to hop back on because we only have an hour on Instagram Live, and I wanted to make sure that I said a special thank you to therapist Meira Greenfeld. We appreciate you so much for coming on and giving us your perspective and insight with all of your knowledge and research through your experience of doing what you do. We appreciate you sharing that knowledge with us this evening. Had a great time, and I wanted to just thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for coming on Raw Talks with V, brought to you by Virtual First Dates. And thank you to my Virtual First Dates community. I love you, and we will see you next time. Good night.